And good afternoon. It is, well, it's actually still good morning, but it's Tuesday, August 27th, 11:30 a.m. And my name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop, and we are continuing our ongoing 2024 election coverage. We've been focusing on the race for Newport City Council's first ward. There are three candidates running for this seat, and whoever wins the seat will be new on Newport City Council because incumbent Angela Lima is not seeking re-election. And today we are chatting with Charles Pattavina. And Charles, how are you?
Oh, well, thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm going to get it first. I take it that you prefer Charlie.
I do, yeah.
Okay, so. Perfect. Well, Charlie, why don't you tell us, give us your background, your life story, a little bit about yourself.
Okay. How much time do we have?
We have 30 minutes.
As I've written elsewhere, I'm a retired or some recovering emergency physician and definitely recovering administrator. So actually my career started in the Navy at Subic Bay, which we no longer have, but my second and final duty station was in Newport, so the Navy really did, bring me here. But then I was happy to stay, of course, and worked for years at the Miriam Hospital in Providence. And then I was looking for a new opportunity after doing some national things, and was recruited to Maine. A couple of years in Massachusetts, then recruited to Maine to really build up a department there. But most of my career I've had like the weight of some responsibility, significant responsibility that I really noticed once it was gone. But just, being responsible for all of the emergency medical services to a community, say. But meanwhile, I lived in Newport for most of my life and most of my adult life, and raised Melissa, Vinny, and Amy, and was happy to have them attend the public schools. And ultimately, Newport always felt like home to me, so I returned a couple of years ago, and feel extremely fortunate to be here. Not just because housing's an issue for just about everyone, but it's just been always such a warm community that I'm happy to be part of. And I'm sure I left out there.
Yeah, that's a good start to get us out to lift off here. What makes you want to seek this position, want to run for city council, want to get involved in local politics, local government?
Well, saying I have the time isn't really a reason, but I don't know. I just felt having had that weight lifted off a few years ago, and had some time, to rest, basically. I just seeing some of the meetings and some of the issues that could be addressed better, and just talking to people, including neighbors who encouraged me to run. I just think we need some more, maybe, I know I'm not young, but I think we need, fresh blood to the council, and have to look at some of these issues, perhaps in a new way. And the thing I hear about over and over again is, affordable housing, and it's really affordable living, because it's, although housing is the biggest thing, there are other things that make it expensive to live here. And then, other issues like the harbor. I've been on the board of Friends of the Waterfront for the past year, and just seeing that occasionally, I think the council could have a little better understanding of some of the waterfront issues. And I know we have a commission for that, but, and even some of the harbor issues. I know the mayor's a sailor, but I have a 35-year history in this harbor, and there are issues, certainly not as critical as housing, but it's still an important quality of life issues for young people. If somebody today signs up on the mooring list, they'll be older than me. Somebody who's 40 would be older than I am when they get a mooring, and that's not right. And I know that the harbor master has some ideas about what the issues are there. So just some interests in a number of areas that the city council gets involved in, and including the new land that should become available due to the bridge realignment. I appreciate that Ellen is on that commission, which is very important, and is going to be giving a recommendation to the city council. But it's just a huge opportunity to, now that we've removed the man-made barrier, basically, that, walled off the north end, to make it into one continuous city, right up to Middletown.
Yeah, and we could talk about a lot of those issues, what could be addressed better, and some fresh blood as well as affordable living. But I'm wondering what you think gives you the unique perspective, experience to best serve Ward 1 residents, voters on City Council.
I think I'd start with, I believe I'm a reasonable person, and I know there are many issues I'll have to learn about, but I'm willing to learn about them and take into account, the views of the people of Ward 1. And also, there might be times, there are many times actually, that say the right answer to an issue isn't the most popular, but then people need some kind of explanation, of what happened there, and why things might not be as simple as they seem, and the best response might be a little more nuanced and not what they're expecting. So I'm certainly willing to do that. I also don't owe anything to anybody, so I literally don't owe anything to anybody, except the bank for my house, of course. But so I really don't come with any particular agenda. I also, I imagine you saw the last city council meeting.
I did. I sat through the 4.5 hours of it. Yes.
Yeah, and a colleague of mine on the Friends of the Waterfront board mentioned there was an elderly couple that sat there through the entire thing, waiting for, I think it was a Newport Yacht Club matter to come up, and then after 4.5 hours, it was tabled. And you would think they would have normally been in bed 3 hours before the end of the meeting. So it just, I understand, people are passionate and even upset about things, but it's just not good to treat each other that way, and to treat the public that way.
What would you say, we're touching on a lot, but if you had to prioritize a couple items, what would you say the priorities you think the next person, I'm sure you're hoping that it's yourself, should prioritize in this seat?
So speaking of which, by the way, I noticed my own counselor, Angela, was one of the 2 or 3 adults in the room at that meeting, and was very much well-spoken and spoke only when she needed to. So I appreciate that. I would say in terms of issues, hands down, I think affordable housing is a big issue, and that's not an issue for any one segment of the, economic strata. That's an issue for basically anyone who doesn't have at least $1 million in the bank. And so basically everyone I know has a housing issue. And in the past few weeks, I spoke to a lawyer, a doctor, a senior executive, and a young family. And it's not even so much that they can't find a house they can afford. Some of them can't find a house, but although it does really come down to affordability. And it's not a problem that's unique to Newport, and it's not a problem that's new. This has been going on ever since the Great Recession, when builders nationally cut back on, basically dwelling units that they were constructing. So while we certainly can do more here, we can look to other communities. I haven't looked at it closely, but I know Kalamazoo, Michigan has a program where they help people on, even with significant incomes, try to afford housing. It's an issue for, say, Newport Hospital. They can't recruit doctors because they can't afford housing. Doctors don't make as much as they used to, but at least relatively, but they certainly generally are considered to have a reliable income. So, but I know, it's an issue for everybody. And you hear about like second houses. A lot of people, you think have second houses. Actually, this might be their first house and their second house is somewhere else. But they're also, I'm sure we're seeing more third and fourth houses, which I think is more of a new thing, than that used to be. I'd also like to know more about the role of private equity in, owning housing, renting, short-term rentals, and generally, need some more information, including some more demographics to understand the problem better. But it's, I think, front and center, like the single biggest issue. And sometimes I hear people talk about it, we don't have anybody to work in the restaurants, or we need bartenders, almost as if they're not people, but these are people who are part of the community, and we don't just need dormitories for them and buses. These are people who deserve a home, just like everyone else who's part of the community. And I think that new land might offer an opportunity as well.
Well, we're sticking with affordable housing before we get to maybe another priority that you think is out there. Any solutions? Anything you think that could be done within first 2 years of being on the council, or anything that the council could be doing now to focus on affordable living, as you call it?
Yeah. Well, we could talk about a couple of specific projects I know that have stalled. There's the Coggeshall School. And I have a few running friends who live around there who are very concerned about what might happen with it. But it seemed that, as I understand it, a private company was given the opportunity to design a project, and they were going to use the school and make some outbuildings. But then there's always the worry that, sure, maybe it's affordable now, or maybe it's somebody's idea of affordable. But, any housing helps, at least if it's under $1 million. But so I don't know why that's stalled at the moment, except that I know there was some community concern about it. But turning that into something that could stay affordable, would be great. And I know there was the group presented at the recent City Council Planning Board meeting that talked about trying to use some of the Gateway Parking Center, to build something above the parking garage, which at least would be flood-proof. I think that's worth looking at too. It has to be, it has to be housing that can be someone's home, and whether they rent it or own it, or whether it's a condo or what. It has to be nice, and it has to, work for the community. So I think, those projects sound interesting, and I'm willing to look at them more closely.
Yeah. What other priorities do you think there are right now from a city council or city government perspective, or what are you hearing about from voters as you talk to people?
Well, I was talking to, the young family I mentioned, and they actually left Newport to move to North Kingstown because just the general feeling that it's a tourist town, and most things, even like city parks, events, things like that, are directed to tourists and to attract more tourists. And it's kind of a vicious cycle too, as people feel that way and they move away with their young kids, then there are fewer young kids around. So you might have the only children on the block, which it really isn't as nice as it could be. So getting around to the idea that, yes, no doubt we are a tourist town. We do depend heavily on that industry. But I think it's worth considering that, maybe the hospitality industry could be contributing more to Newport financially than they are. I heard at that city council meeting, just throwing around that, what was it, 6% of the city's budget? So 6% of the city's budget, which is less than anyone I've asked to guess that number has guessed. Some people guess like almost all of the budget probably comes from the hospitality industry. But so there could be some room for growth there, and maybe we could use some influence with Discover Newport, which does a lot of great things. Um, but I'm disturbed sometimes when I see TV ads for the rest of the state or the rest of the country where Newport is painted as like the Gilded City. So, of course, we do have this history of the Gilded Age, which seems to be coming back. But, in the Gilded Age was not for everybody, and the new Gilded Age is not for everybody, but everybody, we don't all need to live in a mansion, but everybody deserves a decent standard of life and quality of life.
Yeah. Is there anything else before we move on that you're hearing, or you think is a priority or should be a priority?
I'd like to see try to bring the ward together a little more. Currently it looks like the North End, off Broadway, and the Point, and some other little areas, but it's and again, I missed the downtown ramp when they did the bridge realignment at first. It's always the fear of change, but I don't miss it now. I think the trade-off was worth it. You do go around a little longer than you used to, but realizing that for better or for worse, basically for worse, there was an artificial barrier between the North End and the rest of the city for decades, and just the ability now to go down the bike path. I've walked down the bike path with my dog most days in the afternoon, and every day I see more bicycles coming up it and people walking. I did see a guy riding his bike down Fairwell Street. I guess he didn't know about the bike path, but it's just, you can walk or ride a bike or take the new electric transport of your choice, all right down to the shopping plaza there. So, and it goes, right up to the area of Maple Street and beyond. I think it goes all the way to Middletown, actually. So, so I think that's all great. But I am a little actually disturbed by some of the state edicts lately, even though they're not as terrible as they looked at first, like the newer law we had to adopt about accessory dwelling units. It's really not as bad as it looked, and could in fact be a good thing for housing. But just the idea that the state is pushing these zoning changes on us where, one size does not fit all, and we don't necessarily want to allow certain types of businesses by right in, say, residential areas. So that's a little concerning, and perhaps we need to do a better job of working with, not just our state legislative delegation, but state administrators.
Wanted to stick with the ramps for a minute. The ramps area, the North End, perhaps, or the freed up lands. Just wondering, any thoughts on all of possibly the freed up land or anything else going on there in the North End? Any opportunities or anything you'd like to see done there?
Yeah, I would like to see it as sort of one continuous residential or mixed use area, right up to the existing housing in the North End. Well, there's a park in the way, which we want to keep, obviously. And there's a big shopping center there already. So, since our most critical need, other than we always need money, I think is affordable housing and affordable living. I think that would be the first place to look for developing it, but it's also an important place to address the flooding issues because some of us spoke elsewhere about the Elizabeth Brook daylighting project, but there are other flood streams that where the water just wants to go, down from Malbone and that neighborhood just above Malbone. When it rains heavily, it goes right past that big house down. I don't even know where it ends up, but the water the water wants to go where the water wants to go, and that could be incorporated into this new area, um, just as in a really nice way. So we definitely need to consider using that as using the water that wants to be there as part of the development, and also maybe not develop everything, but just parks in particular and trees, we need.
With the flooding and water and, a lot of that, makes me think of, rising tides, rising water, climate change, Easton's Beach, any opportunities there, or any changes or anything you would like to see done, overall with kind of infrastructure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the most critical ones is what you just mentioned at Easton's Beach, because the reservoir is right on the other side of that road. And as sea levels rise, it could destroy that reservoir. So, any kind of new construction basically needs to incorporate, proper barriers. The beach might need to be higher, the road might need to be higher. And we're really on the front lines of climate change and sea level rise. So, we're all trying to do our part. Hopefully some invisible, by which I mean not things, solar panels basically, that can't be seen, if you're in a historic area, that can't be seen from the street, which is the policy. So I think, we can all do some piece of that, but, I think we need to, continue to be focused on renewable energy and, construction that recognizes the problem. I know, I go to Storer Park every morning with my dog because there's a nice little beach there. And I'm not exactly sure on what's under there, but I know there's something under there that has been key to helping with flooding. And obviously there's a, great seawall around there, but it's, not much higher in places than the high tide. But so anything like that would help, keep the water away. Sounds a little bit, like Holland, or where they know a lot about these things, of course. And we could certainly learn from, and have learned from places like that already. But basically anything new needs to really take that into account. As sad as it seems, it's just the reality. And if you look at, those two new houses on behind the old train station on the point,
Yeah.
I didn't measure. They look like they're 14 feet in the air, which is great if they're, occupied by people with good cardiac health. But they're, built that way so the cellars walls can blow out in a storm and the house will still be there. Same as like the Brenton Hotel and maybe even the Marriott.
Yeah, we mentioned some big infrastructure things that might have to be done. The last city council meeting, they were talking about a $98.5 million bond that is coming up in November. There's talk about there's a couple $100 million more in infrastructure improvements or maintenance coming down the road. You mentioned earlier hospitality could pay a little bit more. Any other, and obviously you have not seen the books. Nobody that's running
Right.
for office has seen the books. But any other things that come top of mind that you think could help the city do a better job of maintaining the properties and infrastructure they have, as well as making it better?
Yeah, I was thinking of, wear and tear, basically. I've seen, cities in different places where they don't have as many cars sitting on the roadway for as many hours. And one thing, we don't want to turn the new bridge realignment land into a parking lot, but there is an opportunity to have, parking there and bring people into the city on foot, on bike, by Uber, whatever. But also there's that, it's not clear to me that anyone has a plan for the railroad tracks that run right up to Bridge Street, right next to the bus, across the street from the bus station. So I'd be interested in looking at that, because the tracks aren't even intact anymore in places. But it seems that that would be a way to bring people in without the cars. And then, which kind of makes me think of the overall situation. Just wonder, like, at what point will Newport break? We bring in so many cars, so many people, so many cruise ships, and I know there are limits on the cruise ships, but at what point is it going to break and nobody wants to come here anymore? And then it'll be like after the Navy moved out all over again. So I think it's important to put limits on things, and it's particularly now cars. If there's some way we can keep cars parked and people can just walk, as I said, or consider maybe some kind of I don't want to say light rail. I know that's a specific thing, but also then people from my area can get to wherever they want north of here. So.
What do you think? Is Newport's greatest strength, and how do you think we could better utilize it?
I think the greatest strength is the people. One of the reasons I like being here in the first place and wanted to come back was just a sense of community. And while not everyone has always done the right thing, you can generally count on people here, whether they're in private citizens or part of some organization or part of city government, to do the right thing. But as I said, it doesn't always work that way. But in general, this is one of the best places I've lived, and I guess you say it's the best place I've lived, and that's why I'm here. And we have this terrific history, with a couple of notable exceptions, but beautiful collections of historic homes, that are important to preserve. But without the people of the community, it would just be a museum. So I think and that just gets us back to affordable housing. We have to have people who live and work here, and want to be part of the community. They have to have the ability to live here.
Obviously, you've attended a city council meeting or two as a resident. You can see that sometimes they could be a little bit decisive, or people might have differing opinions. Wondering how you, plan to work well with others, how you plan to represent differing opinions in Ward 1, and how do you share your own opinion?
Yeah, it's always, because not every constituent has the same idea, and they can have 180-degree opposite views on an issue. I think it's important to take all of that into account, and then make a judgment on what you think is best for the city, because you do take an oath to the city, but the city really belongs to the people. So ultimately it would come down to making the best judgment I could. I mentioned some things like traffic patterns, like Admiral Kalfas Road is too crowded. I'm not a traffic expert, but I know that, so I'm willing to listen to people who are experts, who also aren't always right. But I'm, for me to think that I know more than an expert in a certain area of, say, planning or something, would be ridiculous. So I definitely, even though I'm no doubt I have some preconceived notions, I would definitely commit to listening to people who do have the knowledge. And just as in medicine, if you're not happy with it, you get a second opinion.
Charlie, is there any topic or item that we did not get to, or that we did get to, but you wanted to talk more about?
I just sort of touched on the street and sidewalk issues and the wear and tear. There are some overdue areas. Some things, sometimes I don't understand why things get fixed in some areas that didn't really look like they needed it. But sometimes because that was state property, and the streets and sidewalks in the off-Broadway area and the North End are city property. But I have said to people, and I've noticed it's really true of most parts of the city, that it can be safer to walk in the street than it is to walk on the sidewalk. And later in the evening, there aren't that many cars in the street. And I'm not recommending walking in the street. I'm just pointing out that the sidewalks can be pretty irregular and dangerous. And part of my career was spent addressing people who fell down on crooked sidewalks. Another thing that just came to mind about that, but I just think, less wear and tear would be helpful. Oh, I was thinking of the electric vehicle thing when you were talking about city council meetings. I think we were all puzzled when the city made its sort of first pass decision on counting every electric bicycle as a bicycle or as not a motor vehicle. And I know it's important. There are different types. There are some that have a throttle that go really fast and can be heavier, where some are just like electric assisted bikes. And I thought, I know some people have electric cars, so saying can you drive your electric car on the sidewalk now too? And I know most bicycle riders are responsible and ride in the street going the correct way, but we always notice the ones who aren't.
It's true. Charlie, your email as well as website, and for those who are watching along, I'll put it on the bottom here, but why don't you give it to us in case people want to reach out?
Sure. It's cpattavina.com, which for now redirects to my Facebook page, where you could also contact me, or you can use the email info@cpattavina.com. And I appreciate, people considering me, and I would appreciate your vote.
Excellent. And coming right up, actually, it's already started last Wednesday. And I actually have to reach out to City Council and see how many people have already made their way over to vote early. But people can vote early in Ward 1, August 21st through September 9th. Or you can go to your polling place on September 10th. Polling places do change for primary, so visit vote.ri.gov. You can see your sample ballot. You can find your polling place, find out the hours, and all of that good stuff. Charlie, anything else that we missed today?
No, thank you for pointing that out, though. Just happy to talk to people and learn what's on their minds. And I've already voted. So.
Oh, excellent. All right. See, it's as easy as that. Well, Charlie, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. Thank you for running for office. Everybody deserves a round of applause for running for office as well as for serving. So thank you very much.
And thank you for being a journalist. It's so important.
All right, Charlie. Well, thank you very much. And we appreciate you joining us today one more time. And the website is right there on the bottom of the screen, as well as the email address. And if you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it again, want to share it with Ward 1 voters or Newport City Council voters, you can find it all available on whatsupnuke.com, as well as conversations with other candidates for local and statewide offices. Thanks for watching.